Okay, well, we are going to explore this fear of love concept. I'm very, I was so alarmed by it when you sent it, and you just sent it to me haphazardly. I
Yeah,
mean,
it wasn't even like originally something I thought we would talk about on the podcast. It was just more of like, oh my gosh, check out this guy's viewpoint on life.
right. Welcome to Kellums and Grossi,
I'm Terri Kellums.
and I'm Jennifer Grossi. I am
Jennifer,
so glad to talk to you.
I'm kind of interested in seeing where today's conversation goes because when I showed you the video that we're going to share today, you
Yeah.
had some strong reactions to it.
I think it's only because everybody who does know me knows that the number one thing in my life, period, is love. It's love. It's the love is at the top chart. Yeah, I have things to say.
All right, let's roll it. Let's roll the video.
55% of marriages end in divorce. 90% of your relationships that are started before they are 30 end. If those were the stats for surgery, none of us would fucking risk it. But because it's love and we're stupid, we just lie on the operating table like maybe this time I won't die inside. My generation has become so obsessed with starting the rest of their lives that they're willing to give up the one they are currently living. We have romanticized the idea of romance, and it is cancerous. People are more in love with the idea of love than the person they are with.
Well, first of all, can I just say that I'm not even totally sure his stats are right. I'm just being honest.
I didn't verify them.
Where he said 55% of all marriages will divorce. I'm like, 55. When did we hit the extra five? I thought it was 50% if we increased. We may have, we really might have. I don't know, but
Yeah.
it was
And he
alarming.
said 90% if your relationship began before you turn 30. 90% of all those
Yeah.
relationships will fail.
Can you get on board with that idea? I mean, like, can you actually see why that would be? Because I feel like I could understand that.
Okay, so I think you have to kind of look at this in like segments. I think like if you were talking about boomers, I would not believe that's true. If you're talking about Gen Xers, I'm gonna say yes. If you're talking about Y, definitely. I think it's a generational thing, and this guy was definitely a millennial. So he's not coming at it exactly the same way, but I did think it was a little, like he's a little cynical. I think his whole, like metaphor that, if those odds were surgery, we would never risk it.
Right.
But I do think it's interesting if you were digging down into the psychology of it, he's obviously been hurt. That spiel was coming
Sure.
from a guy who has had his heart trampled on for
Yeah.
sure.
Okay, but here's what was interesting. As soon as I had my take on it and you had your take on it, I thought about it and I was like, but we've had our hearts hurt too. And we both were married young.
You know what? So this is going to be like a brutal thing that's going to slip past my filter today is I have, I have probably been the heartbreaker more than I've had my heart broken.
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about that. And I have been the heartbroken.
Yeah.
What's that
So,
say about us? I'm not sure.
yeah, I think, if I'm going to be, just brutally honest with our audience, which we have kind of like right from the beginning said, we're always going to be transparent. We're always going to be authentic and genuine. We're not going to try to sugarcoat things. And my kids won't listen to this, so I'm gonna speak pretty frankly here. I got married the first time because I lived in an abusive home, and me and my boyfriend at the ripe age of, I think I was 15. Yeah, I was 15 when we started talking about like how could I get out of this very abusive home situation. And one of us came up with a very brilliant idea that if I got pregnant, they'd have to let us get married. And I can't regret that because I have three wonderful children from that relationship, but I was not ready to be married. I had no skills. He had no skills. We each had broken like backgrounds that we were coming from. We are approaching this relationship with very, toxic parents,
Yeah.
as our examples of what relationships look like. The second time I went into it, I probably was settling. I was settling because I was a woman with three kids and didn't think that I was going to find someone who would want to take on that kind of responsibility. So even though I would say I was fond of and probably had some emotional attachment to my second husband when I married him, I did not go into it thinking this was like true love, wonderful love that was going to last me a lifetime. I'm just being honest. I didn't.
That's a hard one because when I think about what you're saying, I'm like, how did your heart manage to get into the relationship? Because for me, I have to feel like I have to feel it. It's not like I think I couldn't. And let me just preface it by saying that doesn't mean that I always feel it while I'm in marriage. Because sometimes in marriage, you just get into a fight and you're just like, everybody's not happy. And you're like, I don't love you. But deep down inside you do because you stay and you work and you do your stuff. But how did you manage to get into it? Did you feel like initially the like springs of all the stuff?
I have to do things backwards in life. I'm always doing things the hard way. So I didn't get to do all the things. I didn't go to prom. I had a baby when I was barely 16 years old. I didn't
Right,
do the
right.
prom thing. I didn't do things the right way. I didn't have a wedding with my first husband or a reception or anything. We just got married at the courthouse. And so when I got divorced from him, or even probably just separated from him, I got a little wild there for a while. Like I was partying a ton, and um it wore off really quickly, like going out to the bars and meeting guys that way. And I had a girlfriend at the
Yeah.
time that I was hanging out with, and she was all about free love, baby. She was
Okay.
all about free love. That's all I'm going to
Yeah.
say. She was a very nice girl. I still love her, but we had very different ways of approaching it. And I met guy after guy, and nothing was clicking. Nothing felt like it was anybody I'd ever want to be with. And so when I did meet this guy, he was the first one that I probably felt like a little bit of an attachment to. And so, gosh, just there is no excuse for this, but I just didn't understand. I didn't understand what really love and commitment was all about. And I didn't understand marriage. I didn't understand what a huge step that is and what a huge thing you're doing before God and your family and friends. Like it just didn't feel like that for me. It just felt like another long-term boyfriend. I don't know.
Right. Right.
It's I probably should dive into that a little bit more on my own someday. But yeah, and so
Wait a minute, hold on, because apparently you've already gotten past that because you and Brian have been together for a very long time. Well, you guys just celebrated an anniversary recently for how many? 13 years? Is that
13
right?
years.
But you were also dating for a while too. So how many? 14 plus what?
No, no, 13 total. Yeah,
Oh, 13. Okay.
married
13 total.
9, but together for
Okay.
13.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you just had this anniversary, which means it's not like, when this guy's talking, we're talking about a younger
Mhm.
mindset, hasn't
Mhm.
maybe been through so you managed to get past that thought to go to this marriage where you work your butt off in this
Yeah.
marriage.
Think about who you are. I got married the second time at 26.
Okay.
I
The
you
brain is not.
still don't know who you are at
So
26 years
true.
old,
So true.
and we were married for 12 years. And so I did meet Brian. How old was I when I met Brian? I'm not great at math. 42, I think I was when I met Brian. And I mean, a whole lot of life changes between age
Yeah.
26 and age 42. A whole lot of
My
life
gosh,
changes.
so true.
Yeah. But you learn just as much from when you fail at things as when you're successful. You probably learn more from when you fail.
Yeah.
And I definitely take responsibility for all of my decisions and all of my parts in both marriage failures. Like
Yeah.
I was a horrible, horrible communicator the second time around. The first time around's like a blur. Like we were just babies. We were
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
We
You're
were
trying to
kids.
grow up. Yeah.
Yeah.
While doing all
Yeah.
that.
So that's kind of a blur, it's a lot of really immature a lot of immature times, a lot of immature years um, with my first husband. But yeah, the second one, I learned a lot about the failures. I learned a lot about myself, about, how you go into things and how you communicate things and how you correct the mistakes. One thing I didn't learn between my first and my second marriage was you have to heal yourself, which is here's where I think you and I are I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. I think you and I are going to disagree because what you said to me the other day when you first listened to the video was, you said to me, I think self love can be a little selfish. And although I
There
don't
was a
think it,
caveat. There's a caveat.
there
But
is a
yes.
caveat. Now, you can go ahead and say it right now if you want to. Like,
Well,
what's the
okay.
caveat to that?
The caveat is that if you don't love yourself, you don't really have anything to give anybody. So you need to learn how to love yourself, how to accept yourself, how to, say, I'm okay with who I am and grow into the fact that you're like, no, I really, I was listening to Joyce Myers recently who was talking about somebody that she had talked to about loving yourself and accepting yourself. And the lady, I think had, don't quote me on this, but I think she said that there was like a woman who wrote a whole book or an article on starting to come to terms and be okay with your thighs. And I thought, that is so funny because I do believe that that's just like one little inch of what it means to self-love. You have to be okay with who you are. There was years and years ago, I remember Oprah did a whole thing with somebody who came in and talked about looking yourself in the mirror, standing in the mirror, and accepting yourself with nothing on, meaning staring at your body and being like, okay, well, I like this little patch. Look at how soft it is. I love how, I love this about myself. I love that about myself. And the whole purpose of that was just to say, I'm okay with me. I've come to the place where the acceptance that I get from somebody else is not the thing that's going to make my life. I need to be genuinely happy inside myself. So, with that
Yeah,
said, I
that's the
believe that we have to
caveat.
self love. However, if I'm focused, as this guy was saying, like people are giving up, they're giving up for the sake of, well, how did he put it? For the sake of going into a relationship and getting on with their lives and establishing, they're giving up their current life the way it is. And I thought, I'm
What
sorry,
did you
but
think he meant by that?
I
What
think
did you
he meant you
hear?
should totally be happy where you are by yourself without needing another partner. Okay, I agree with that, except he meant that the idea of romancing, how he said it, romanticizing romance. The
Well,
idea
yeah.
of that was evil somehow. And I thought,
Oh, is that the
not
way you
even,
is
oh,
that
for
the way you
sure.
saw that?
I was like,
Okay.
you got to be kidding me. I have got kids right now. All three of my boys have a lovely young woman in their life. And each one of them is looking for a way to romance that young lady, and I'm watching the girls do the same thing. They come back and they try to romance their one of my boys, and in my brain I'm like, that's beautiful, that's just plain beautiful. So for me, this whole idea of like not giving up your life for somebody else, I'm sorry, I think that's foolish. I think it's completely foolish if you are bent towards the idea of ever being in a relationship. Now, I can also say that I recently met a young woman who I was talking to, and she shared the fact that she just doesn't have any interest in marriage at all.
Did she give any reasons why?
She said, I've never really been interested in a relationship. I don't want one. And I'm fine if I'm like this, just by myself.
How old is
And
she?
she's young, she's in her 20s. But
Okay.
what was interesting about it was that when I saw her, I thought about the fact that I also know that the Bible talks about Paul, and Paul made this whole big statement about how um, don't get married unless you're called to get married, like you are meant to get married because you could do more as a single person than you could in a relationship. And that's just not something I've ever felt was for me. Like being single is not for me.
I know I never imagined myself single, but here's what I was gonna say. I think that the mistake that a lot of people make when they go from one relationship to the other is they forget to heal. And part of healing has to be accepting who you are and loving who you are, faults and all your flaws, all
That's
your
true.
faults. And when I do coaching, I can't say I've done it with every single coaching client, but I had one lady in particular that stands out in my mind. I asked her to do this thing, it's the mirror exercise. Like, go look, stand in the mirror and say kind things about yourself to yourself. Can you do five? Can you come up with five things that you can stand and look at yourself dead in the eye and say, I love this about me. I love that about me.
Right.
She said, no, I can't do that. She said, no, I can't do that.
That's hard.
So when I think of self-love, I think like if you can't love yourself and be happy with who you are, it's almost as if maybe, not always, but maybe you're looking for a mate to fill those things within you that you can't seem to fill yourself. And so I feel like self-love is being able to be okay whether you're with somebody or alone, like your lady you were just talking about, you got to be okay with it. Now, that being said, I'm not someone who wants to be alone. I'm not someone who, I've always pictured myself married and having babies and doing the whole white picket fence thing, the whole American dream. Like that's always been something I've wanted. But when you and I were talking the other day, I told you, I go, we're at the age, Brian and I, where, I mean, as morbid as it sounds, like you're always hearing a story. of, this guy's wife got sick. They bought the Winnebago when they retired because they were going to travel. I just heard this story last night. They were going to travel and she died before they ever got a chance to take the Winnebago out, even one
I
time.
can't. That breaks my heart.
Yeah. So you're hearing these stories all the time. And so Brian and I have these very frank conversations and we call it, like my plan B. Like my plan A is obviously Brian and all these goals and dreams that we have together for our retirement years. But the plan B is, where will I live? What will I do if I find myself as a widow? And I did tell him, I'm like, I think when you're younger, like the age I was when we got married, I would say, or met each other, early 40s, um, I probably was still part of my idea of marriage was security. Like women tend to want security in marriage, and that's why we lean towards marriage. Whereas men, I think, want to be taken care of. That's why they lean towards marriage. But and I know that's true for my husband.
I have such a
Yes,
take on
yes.
that. Go ahead.
But now, like if if something were to happen now, and I'm almost 56 years old, or within the next 10 years, I don't think I'd get remarried again. I think I would want a companion, but I don't know if I need to cohabitate with anybody again. But that's easy to say when I don't have to live it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So let's
Here we
step
go.
back for a second. Let's step back for a second. So the part that cracks me up was the fact that you said that the men just want to be taken care of. And I laughed at that because I'm like, okay, is that true? In my head, is that true? Okay, when I remarried, so the first round was it was a totally different experience than this one. And I'm so grateful for second chances. I can't even tell you because I was young and stupid when I got married the first time. And I was bright eyed, very much like this guy says in the video. Like you just are like romanticizing romance. I did. I absolutely did. But that same exact emotion came to the second one because, oh my gosh, romance is so amazing. It's not even like I work hard to keep that thing going. So does Stephen. We just like, we never like want to let it go. We've spoken about that, you and I. And I think we even did a podcast recently about that. So here's the thing. I do think that we come to a relationship with women because I believe that the number one need for women is security, a sense of security. So we automatically go, okay, I want to be secure in my life. And some women take that to a place where they say, okay, well, this man is financially good. That's good enough for me. And then there's other women who say, I want security in lots of ways. For me,
Not just
security,
financial. Hmm.
yes, I want to be secure in a relationship where I have a helpmate and I can be one. I want to, I want it emotionally, mentally, physically, financially. I want it all. I want it all. And I was not really willing to step back and be like, oh, let me just take one or two. No. Second round, as you say, you learn.
Yeah. Almost every day you could go on social media and you could see a woman doing a video that says, I don't need no man. And let me tell you this. So the other day we were pouring our concrete inside of our block
Yeah.
for our perimeter walls of our house. And oh my gosh, Jennifer, it was like 102 outside, maybe 104, something like that. And these guys were out there all day. I believe Brian was out there at like 6:30. I think the crew started showing up about 7, and I think everybody left by like 4:30. And I would go out there to like make sure they had drinks, or I was out grocery shopping doing all these things. I was exhausted, and I wasn't even out there really working. I mean, I cooked
Yes.
lunch, if you want to call that
Yes.
work. I was, and I'm like, I'm taking some stuff out to the trash, and I'm looking over at them and I'm thinking, I get to walk back inside where it's air conditioned and I'll be cool and
Yes.
comfortable. These guys got
Yes.
to be out here all day. And I'm sorry, but I need a man because I don't want to do that. I don't want
It's
to do
so
that.
true. It's so true. I feel like that even with my sons. Like if I need something lifted, yesterday I threw out a rug and it's heavy. It's just a rolled up rug, but it's heavy. And I just call on one of the kids and I go, hey, I need some help. I need some muscle. Because
Hmm.
Jennifer can drag it across the floor.
Right.
But what if I just get one of them who can pick it up, sling it over their shoulder, and walk out the door naturally? They
Right.
just have it naturally. Then
Right.
the other part you had said was that they want to be taken care of. Well, here's the thing. And this is something that I have watched recent generation, kind of balk at, and I don't get it. I don't get it at all. There, it's like the assumption is that he is supposed to give me all the security that I need, but I shouldn't have to do much. Like, I don't have to give back. And to me, that's That's insane. If you
Mhm.
want to work as a partnership, you have to act like a partner too. And there,
Mhm.
so okay, so my husband says to me just this morning, actually, just said to me, "Hey, you never asked me for like a shoulder massage." And I go, "Cause I know you're tired and I know you work hard and I don't really want." And he's like, "Yeah, but every time you ask me for something like that, you make me feel important, like you need me and like
Aw.
you want me in this way." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that as like, oh, this is an actual thing you want. I'm thinking it's a burden to sit here because my hands are not built for giving a shoulder rub. I don't have strong muscles in my hands, but this man's got some good muscles and that's some great shoulder massage. I should ask him for that and he gets something, but okay. However, he can come to me and say, "Hey, babe, what are we having for dinner?" And I'm going to provide that for him. Not because I'm the little wife in the kitchen, but
Yeah, right.
because there's a partnership here. I know
Yep.
you get up in the morning. We both like to make breakfast for our husbands, and you send your husband out with drinks out to the workspace. I do the same thing. I love it. I love doing it because then I feel the essence of my importance in his life too. I want him to know that he can count on me and I can count on him. But how are you going to do that if you're so full of self that you think it's all about me, 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 me?
But
Really?
that's where your self-love is, yeah. So we were with, Brian's sons for Father's Day, met him for lunch in Tucson, and we got into some discussions. We do this quite frequently with them, and, after we left, I said to Brian, I go, "I kinda wish I wouldn't have been there because I wish you would have had the opportunity to share with the boys," because what we heard from our boys is that they need to feel appreciated. That's a big thing at the top of their list. They want to feel appreciated.
Big. Yes.
And my one stepson said that for him, appreciation feels like the son, I'm willing to go out and work a lot. And he works outside in the heat too. And he works overtime. And he's like, I'm willing to do that. What I need to feel appreciated is to come home and I want to come home to a clean home. And he named a few things in addition to the clean home, no dishes in the sink, blah, 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 that kind of thing. And I was like, I was just really absorbing it and just trying to like think how different is what he's saying from what I hear Brian saying. And so we're in the car and Brian says, no, he goes, what I have told them before, and this is what I would say if I would have felt like I needed to say it again. He goes, I would have said, you need to talk about these things ahead of time. These agreements is what he refers to them to. And he's like, my as a man, my want and my need is I like my wife to be home. I like I like to have my breakfast made. I like to I like my clothes to be clean, and I want her there when I come home at the end of the day to greet me and spend time with me and us to eat dinner together. And he goes, and your part is to meet those needs, and you're very happy to do it because you love staying home. And I'm like, yeah, I guess, it might sound a little Neanderthal to some people listening,
No, it
but
does because even when you're
it's
saying it,
simple. It's
yeah,
simple. He has a
it is
want
so
and need,
simple.
and I am absolutely on board to do that because I love doing that stuff. I'm all about that. But this
Well,
younger generation, maybe they're just not built like that. Maybe the influences of social media and, the world, maybe they're just not built for it. I don't
I
know.
also think that there's a lot of influence, as you said, for people to think like, oh, and I think, look, okay, we probably sound like we're trying to live the Lucille Ball life, where
Oh,
when
or
it was I Love Lucy,
separate mom life or whatever.
we just stay home and we are the little woman. No, we're not. My husband folds laundry, he vacuums, he will cook, he will clean. There's no, and I will go outside and help him if he needs help outside in the heat. I would totally do it for him. The thing is, though, that there's an amount of like, no, there's just a natural ability as a girl to do the details.
Nurturing
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
That's
All the
feminine
things.
energy. That's
Yeah.
feminine energy when you're doing the nurturing things. But you know what? Like that being said, like I worked from the time I was like 15. I think I started babysitting even younger than that, if you count that. But at least 15, I was a waitress. I remember waitressing odd jobs throughout the years. And then I had a real bona fide corporate career for many years, 16 years. I know what it's like to leave the home, work all day. And I did love my job. So I'm not going to pretend that it was like totally awful every day to go to work, but come home and still do all those chores, the cooking and all that. So now I'm at a place where I appreciate that you know what? We've talked about this before. I wake up and I say what I'm grateful for. You know, one of the things that makes my grateful list almost every single day is time freedom. Like almost all the time, I have time freedom. I can choose when I walk on the treadmill, when I do this, when I do that, how many loads of laundry I do. I have all sorts of time freedom. And that to me is priceless because you can always make more money. You can't make more time.
Well, it's true, and also the idea of having the balance is the bigger picture there because the time freedom that you have allows you to do the things that make it's just such a balance. I'm sorry, it's like if you put them on scales and you go, okay, this is the man's side and then this is the woman's side.
Mhm.
The only way to balance a home and not be the person running on the hamster wheel the whole time is to say, this is your jobs and that's my jobs. And that's negotiable. Like some
It
men,
is negotiable.
yeah,
And
I feel
when he
there's men who,
retires, we're going to renegotiate some of that because if he's not, if he's not out working,
that's
you
a
know,
whole other podcast.
yeah, that's a whole nother podcast. If he's not out working every day, we're going to have to renegotiate some of
Yeah.
this. But
Yeah.
for right now, I mean, absolutely, without a doubt, he's working pretty much 7 days a week,
Yeah.
sometimes
That's
six,
Yeah,
but
because
pretty
he's not
much
just
seven.
working out, he's building a house at the same time
Right.
on
Yeah.
the property, and there is everything to say for that. But I think also, like, so Steven has always been a full-time worker. When we honestly, when we were dating, we were just dating, there was a drive, and I will never forget it. I'm sitting in the passenger seat, he's driving, and he has this one moment where he says, "I need to talk to you about something." You know how your heart pounds when somebody says that?
Yeah.
My heart
We
was
need
like,
to talk.
"My gosh, what are we doing? What is this?" And we'd probably been dating for easily 8 months. And he looked at me and he goes, I just need to tell you, I am looking. Now, this is a negotiation. Let's not read into it any more than it is. I am looking for a wife who wants to stay home and raise our children. And I want to go work to keep that happening. And I
Think
was
that is
like,
so amazing. Like, and if you were not the woman that wanted to do that, there's your out. You're like, well, I'm not
exactly.
that woman.
That was the moment.
I wanna go and have a career and I wanna accomplish all these things in my life. Either one of those paths, totally fine. I have no judgment
Totally.
for either one. You know, my
Totally.
daughter, I have a grandson, my daughter, she wants to work. She doesn't necessarily
Yeah.
want the stay-at-home mom life.
Exactly.
That's fine. It's fine
Exactly.
because if that's what's gonna make you happy, that's gonna also make you a really good mom. You know, you gotta take all those things into
I
consideration.
I don't disagree with that. I think that most people have to figure out what their path is. But I think that the reason I'm saying that only had to do with the fact that at that moment, it was like you said, there was that place where I could either exit and go,
Yep.
nah, that's not really what I want. I just
Yep.
don't, or that's, and I just laughed. As soon as he said it, I started laughing and I said, that is exactly what I want for me. For me, I have never been a career person where I'm like, let's go out there and have a career. I don't want that. I wanted to be home with my kids. That's how I just wanted to do it. So he wanted it. I wanted it. We made a way to do that. If he had ever said to me, no, I don't want you to be that person who stays at home. I want you to go out and have a career. I want a dual income. This is how I want it. Then I would have also negotiated. Like you have to make those hard decisions before you ever get married. But when you're in marriage, you, like you said, can reevaluate them over time. It wasn't, it's always been like a thing. If I have done any work, which I have throughout the course of our history, I would say there was a negotiation that was in there. Like, okay, well, how is this going to affect, for goodness sake, laundry? How's it going to affect dinner at night? How's it going to affect? You got to go that direction. But going back to what this reel was talking about was more about the idea that people are unwilling. They want to jump into their life, and I think that is what I'm talking about. Like that is the real of life. That's the real part. He can talk about the
Yeah.
romanticizing romance and just being willing to like let go of your singleness for another person. But like you said at the beginning, it's a cynical perspective in my mind.
It was pretty cynical. It was like he was saying, like, you're giving up the life you already have for a life that you imagine is going to be better, but you have no idea if it's going to be better. Like
Or he
you're,
even seemed to possibly doom it like it could never be what you thought it was.
yeah. Oh, well, that's the way he started out. Like he's saying you're doomed, like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
would never go under the knife and have surgery with those kind of odds.
Right. You're pretty
So,
much just screwed if you get married. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. I think that in fact, I'm so hopeful that the generation that we're watching that we do see starting to turn that tide comes back to some kind of like place. I know it's totally, why does it seem so awkward to even say that these days? But it is
well,
like a thing, right?
I mean, there's a community. If you are looking at the right things on Facebook and TikTok, wherever, there's a whole community of women who are starting to say, you know what? I want to be home with my children. I want to make homemade bread. I want
I
to,
have
I
I
enjoy
love
all those
following them.
things. Um, so here's an interesting stat about Gen Xers. Um, by age 35, 11% of Gen Xers who had already married will be on their second marriage. So that's me, right? Like I got married young. I was already on my second marriage by the time I was 35. And then it says by age 55, that figure rose to 27%, reflecting both divorce and a willingness to try again later in life.
Wait,
So,
when the 27% would stay? Is that what you said?
it says, let's see. Okay, Gen Xers who had already married, let's see, about 11% of Gen Xers who had married, so married before age 35, were already on their second marriage. And
So it
then by
rose by
age,
25% or 27%?
yeah, by age
Or both,
55, that
yeah.
figure rose to 27%.
Okay, because they were smarter and they were like, "Okay, maybe I'll try it again." Is that what we're thinking?
Well, yeah, and I just doing a little research on it, like people go into later life marriages with a whole different perspective on life. They're having
Yeah.
the conversations like, what Brian said, like, or even what Steven said is, here's what I'm looking for. Are you could you potentially be that person that wants the same thing that I want? You already know, like I went into my marriage with Brian already knowing I needed to work on my communication. Like I had to be willing to say the quiet parts out loud because, keeping all the stuff inside does not really
Yeah.
work if
Yes,
you want a
yes,
marriage,
I
a
get what
healthy
you're
marriage.
saying there.
Yeah. So what else? Was there any other stats here? Okay, the gender gap in remarriage. Amongst those eligible, 64% of divorced or widowed men eventually remarried compared to 52 of similarly situated women. And that was on Pew Research. I think you've been on that website before.
Yes, yes.
So 64% of the divorced men are getting remarried, but only 52 of the women. You know what? So I belong to a lot of Facebook groups with women in our age group.
Yeah. Yeah.
And oh my gosh, if you sometimes I'm reading these things out loud to Brian, and I can't say he's really shocked by any of it, but so women our age are saying things like, it's just easier to be alone. Nope, I'm already financially secure. I don't need a man to like, fill that void anymore. My hormones are whacked, so I have no libido. I don't have any interest in having
Okay.
sex. And I have a great group of girlfriends that I travel with, so I don't even really need the companionship. So there is a significant group of women out there in the world that are our age
Yeah.
that are saying those kind of things. They're like, no, I've already had it. Don't need it. And on the podcast, previously when it was the What Women Want Today podcast, I interviewed a woman named Marie Scott. And she had been married to the love of her life for, oh my gosh, a long time. I can't remember anymore how long. And when he passed away, she said, I've already had my great love. I don't expect to have another love like that. And a girlfriend of hers, she lived in Connecticut. A girlfriend of hers talked her into coming down to Florida, and she started participating in some of these, more like single activities for, the older generation. And this guy asks her to dance, and they end up being really good friends, and they end up getting married. And admittedly, she says, I love him differently than I loved my first husband.
Mm.
But he's still such a great man, and I do love him, and he, fills the need that I need for this point of my life.
Well, it's interesting because the first reaction in my mind when you said that she had lost her love and didn't expect another one was, when everybody notices that they don't have a relationship?
Hmm.
Thanksgiving, Christmas,
Yeah.
New Year's. Everybody notices right about then that, "Oh, crap, I have nobody," like, "Oh, I'm gonna be so lonely." Or or they just flood their system with a lot of stuff that they love that will compensate for it.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes the
Believe me,
place
I'm
of
not
it.
trying to say you have to be married in order to feel successful or happy or
I
whatever. I'm
agree.
not
I
saying that.
agree with that.
But I do think that sorry, but I think that if something happened to Steven, I probably would initially feel that way, and I think over time I'd be like, "I don't know, because the loneliness is a factor, it's a factor, and we
Yeah.
all wanna be with somebody." I'm
I
just
definitely, I definitely want to hear from our audience on this. I want you to
yeah,
comment below, like, would you get remarried? Why or why not? Like, I want to hear,
if
I
you've
want to hear
been
some audience
married
input. Yeah,
if you've
if
been
you've been,
married prior, did you
yeah,
remarry again?
would
And
you
if
remarry?
so, how
For what
how do you
reason?
see it now? Yeah, well, like,
Yeah.
what yeah, exactly, what's the reason?
What's the reason?
Is it, like,
Love?
all the
You want to
security
be,
reason? Yeah. Did you fall passionately in love with somebody? I don't know, there's a whole lot of them, but I think that Yeah, I just think that the whole cynicism about this particular video was like, no, I don't think this. I mean, yeah, obviously we've got the self-love part down. We have the relationship needs down. I think it's just a matter of recognizing that it's not well, I'm so glad that not everybody thinks that way, or we'd have nobody. We'd have no relationships.
Yeah. So the Gen Xers' top reasons, their top motivations for remarrying are loneliness and the empty nest transition, financial and practical gains, more intentional partner selection, which I think we kind of covered
Yep,
there a little bit.
totally.
Desires for emotional support. I could see that. I could see that part.
Yeah, I think that's true too.
Societal and cultural shifts. And I just want to just go a little deeper into that one because that one might be just a little generic, but it says divorce has become less stigmatized for Gen X than for previous generations. And therapy and coaching is more accepted, making the idea of trying again, quote unquote, feel safer and more supported than it once did. So yeah, this has been a really interesting topic today. Don't forget, listeners, while you're here to subscribe, hit the like button so you'll be notified of all of our future episodes. You know what, Jennifer and I, one of our goals is, I hope you don't mind if I spill the beans on this, is um, once we get these episodes, going and we're a lot more comfortable in our whole process here, we actually want to do some live streaming. So what would be really neat is if we release a podcast episode like this one, and then we let you know when we're going to be live streaming, and you could come and join the conversation with us, and we could hear like real time from people because I think people are going to have some pretty strong opinions about this topic.
We seem to.
Yeah. All right. Do you got anything else before we end today? Any other insights on this topic?
Good Lord, no. I think I did. If I did, it would. I could go on for this topic forever, but I feel like we're good.
Yeah, we're good. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us.
We know you don't have to be here, but you are, and we really appreciate that. You can help this community grow by liking and commenting and sharing this podcast with your friends, and by liking and following us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or anywhere else that you listen to our podcast. You can find all these links in the show notes below. Just look for Kellums and Grossi, and thank you for being a part of it all.
The content of Kellums and Grossi podcast is intended for entertainment and general informational purposes only. We are not lawyers, therapists, or other licensed professionals, and nothing on this podcast should be taken as professional, medical, legal, or financial advice. Always consult a qualified professional before making decisions or taking actions based on what you've heard here today. Your use of our content is at your own risk.